All right, welcome to week 5 of CST 8300. We are going to be tackling ethics, and this is going to be a two-part thing that we're doing. This week we're going to focus on part 1, and the next week we're going to dive into part 2. Ethics is one of my favorite things because it's pretty interesting to discuss. So first of all, thinking about what is the difference between someone's values, their morals, and their ethics? And what does it mean to be ethical? So just things to reflect on. Throughout this video, if I say like stop and reflect, if you can like pause the video and actually like use that time to think, it'll be really beneficial for you to really, be cognizant of what we're actually doing in this class, because normally this would be like an in-person class and we would have really lively discussions, but it could be beneficial to just kind of like stop the video and actually think for yourself about these questions, and it would have almost the same effect, not quite, but all right, so values, morals, and ethics. So values are the things that you believe and that are important to you, and these are things that guide your behavior. And then there are morals, and this is a personal standard of right or wrong. So this is what you think are right or wrong, or what your family believes to be right and wrong. And then there's ethics, and this is a set of principles of correct conduct. So a theory or a system of moral values. So note the difference between morals and ethics does not seem to be universally agreed upon. So ethical perspectives. So I'm going to go over just a few of them, and then in between these different perspectives, I'll have like a reflection question, and you can kind of just like pause and reflect on these, because I think it's really important for people to really understand what we're talking about before you go into discussions. So personal ethical views, so depends on your values, biases. Everyone has different prejudices and who you are as an individual. And we'll talk about the theory, subjective relativism. So differing viewpoints can both be right, and each person decides what is right and wrong for themselves. So how do your personal values affect your ethical decisions? And how might biases or prejudices affect your ethical decisions? So if you're watching this video, use this time to like pause the video and think about these two questions. All right, ethical perspectives continued. So societal ethical views. So our views generally conform to what society views as ethical, but not always. Not one single definition of an ethical society, because depending on where you are or what time period you're living in, these are going to change. They've definitely changed over time. And sometimes society's definition of what is ethical can be flawed. And I'm sure you can think of lots and lots of examples of that. And then there's cultural relativism. So right and wrong depend upon society's moral guidelines, and a particular action might be right in one society at one time and wrong in another society at another time. So think about these things. So what is an example of an ethical view that is different in different societies? I can definitely think of many. And what is an example of a societal ethical view that has changed over time? So things that we used to think were ethical or not ethical that have changed. Definitely take this time to think about those things. Back to different ethical perspectives. So legal ethical views. So usually often attempts to reflect ethics, but does not necessarily determine whether an action is ethical or not, will affect the consequences of the action and therefore must be considered. All right, what is an example of something that is legal but not ethical? And what about something ethical but not legal? Ooh, so definitely take some time to think of some examples of those. So normally in a small group, I would get you to create a list of top 10 questions you might ask yourself when making ethical decisions. This is optional, but it's really cool to see like a lot of students in the past have been like, okay, the first thing I ask myself is, what would my mom say about this if I did this? Or would I go to jail? Is the next question they would ask themselves to decide whether something's ethical or not. Or what about, will anyone be hurt by this, right? So just basic guidelines of how you as a person determine what is ethical or not. So these are some questions. So the law, is this action legal? If the action is illegal, it may be unethical. Fairness, is this action fair to all parties involved? So if someone is going to be harmed or not treated equally, it might be unethical. Note, fair means that the decision was made in an impartial or unbiased way. It does not mean that everyone will be happy with the outcome. And conscience. So will I feel good about this action? So even if an action is legal and it is fair, if it makes us feel bad or makes us feel icky, it might not be ethical. And then I would take this time now to click on this video link and watch the theory of the trolley problem. Many of you have probably heard of this before, but it kind of delves into ethics a lot and gets you thinking. All right, welcome back from the video. So these are some major ethical theories. So there's consequentialism, so based on consequences or the outcome of an action. Ignores if the action itself is inherently moral. And then there's um, utilitarianism, so considering the consequences of each individual action in a given moment. In each situation, take the action that will lead to the greatest good or the greatest good for the number of people. And then the next one would be actions are not considered as isolated incidents. Actions are based on general rules. If followed by everyone, will lead to the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And then finally, we have ethical egoism. So each person should focus exclusively on their self-interest. The most ethical action will provide oneself with maximum benefit. So there's deontology, based on rules that determine if an action itself is inherently moral. This ignores consequences. And then divine command theory, so this is based on religion. The idea that holy books will reveal God's will, if that's what you believe, and good actions are aligned with God's will, and bad actions are contrary to God's will. So that's a very, it depends on like what you believe personally and or where you live that this would be like relevant. Social contract theory, strictly based on the terms and conditions of an agreed upon social contract, and contract can be explicit like laws or it can be implicit. So which is better? There is no winner. They both have major flaws if used exclusively. We cannot ignore the intrinsic morality of individual actions themselves, but we also cannot ignore consequences of those actions. Generally, we end up using a combination of all these theories when making decisions. All right, business ethics. So there's ethical versus economical. So does a business have any ethical duty which extends beyond making money? I want you to like take a moment and pause and think about that question. And then shareholders versus stakeholders. So does a business have any ethical duty to its stakeholders or just to its shareholders? And again, I'm really bummed that we can't have, maybe we'll have these discussions in the optional Zoom this week, because I'll definitely be a part of that. I was a part of it last week and I enjoyed it. So hopefully we get to like discuss these things. Some more examples of business ethics. The reason we tackle this is you might come across some of this if you end up working for like a company. And so on your own time, I recommend Googling these examples. So there's price fixing, greenwashing, nepotism, there's kickbacks, product liability, harassment, employee safety, social media, and discrimination. All right. And I'm just going to quickly go into Brightspace and show you guys what's going on. So in week 5, I have several videos for you to watch. I have already probably made you watch the trolley problem. Please watch the rest of these. And there is a discussion. And I guess to find that discussion, I have to actually go into discussions. All right, great. Week 5 discussion. So I'll show you what this looks like. All right, so it tells you to watch these videos if you hadn't already. And then it asks you a bunch of questions. And yeah, if there continues to be issues with like, let's say only you and one other group member are posting in the discussion and you're only commenting on each other's things, please let me know, because I've been giving you partial marks if you only replied to one person, and if that was your only option, obviously bring that forward to me and I can adjust your grade if there was no option to reply to anyone else. All right, that concludes this week, and I look forward to ethics part 2 and reading your discussion posts.